This is Jared from Commit Quality, and in today's video, I want to go over methods in C#. So before we start writing anything, let's just talk about what we've done so far. At the moment, everything we've wrote is very sequential. It's just one single block of code. But what if we wanted to write code and reuse the code? We want to adhere to the DRY principle, which is do not repeat yourself. You don't want to have code which is unmaintainable, where you're writing the same kind of code in multiple places, and if you have to change it, you have to go into each file that you change and update that code. That's going to be a complete maintenance nightmare, and that will get out of hand very quickly for large applications. At the moment, we are just writing basic code, but if you think of a large application, you don't want to be getting into that state, and this is where methods can help. Basically, a method is just a block of statements. What we do is we create a method, and then we can call the method name, and that will invoke the code inside it. You can pass parameters, also known as arguments, to your methods, and that can make them a little bit more dynamic. So I want to do a very basic example, which has probably been done from the start, even when I started learning, which is writing like a basic calculator using some methods. So what I want to do is I want to say int, which is the return type. I then want to say add two numbers, and I'm going to pass some parameters through. Now, you don't have to. You can create a method like this and just return something. But I want to say I want to pass numbers through. So it's going to make it a bit more dynamic so the user can decide. So I'm going to say int x and int y. These can be named whatever you want. These are just parameters we're passing through to our method, and we'll use these inside the block of code. And I'm just going to say return x plus y. So all this is doing is returning the number x plus the number y, which meets what our method name is of add two numbers, because you want to try and make this as readable as possible. And now what I can do then is I can say int first calc. So this is our first calculation. I'm going to say add two numbers, and this is where I need to pass the numbers through as parameters. So I'm going to say 1 and 2. So the output of that, you can guess, is going to be 3. And tell you, I'll do another one. I'll do int second calc, and I'll say 2, 3. So in this case, this should output 3. So if I now say console.writeLine, and I'll say first calc here, and I'll say another console.write of second calc, what this should output is 3 and 5, because it's just adding the numbers we've passed through as parameters in here. Awesome. 3 and 5. Of course, you can also just do a console.writeLine and call on the method in here as well. So I could say console.writeLine, add two numbers, and I could say 5 and 5, and that will then output 10 as our last number here. Let's just run it to make sure. Here we are, and we've got 10 output there. Perfect. What's our method done? We have the type of what's being returned, we have the method name, and we have the parameters inside here. You can have as many as you want, but you want to try and cut these down and keep them as clean as possible, because as you can imagine, it can get out of hand if you've got lots of parameters added in. Here, all we're saying is, because we said the return type is int, you have to say return, and this returns an integer. If I didn't have this in here, and I just commented this out at the moment, you end up seeing we've got this red squiggly line that said not all code paths return a value, and that's because we're expecting this to return an integer. So that might bring the question then to say, okay, but what if I didn't want to return anything? Maybe I just want to do a console output inside here. Well, you can do that. And here we can say void, add two numbers. Once again, we're going to say int x, int y. Let's just comment this out at the moment as well, so it's not confusing anything. Void add two numbers, and what the void keyword does is says I'm not returning anything in here. So what I can do is I can do the calculation in here by saying int final equals x plus y, and then I can just do a console.writeLine in here if I want to, a final, and then I could just say get rid of this, and we'll say add two numbers. Let's do 5 and 5 again. And in this case, we're not returning anything, but because we called on this method, add two numbers, at the end of it is just going to do an output of console.writeLine, but we're not returning any value because we've said it here that it's a void, which means no value is to be returned. So if I hit run on this, we'll see the 10 is output because we've done the console.writeLine inside this method. And a little challenge for everyone now then. What I want to try and do is do a scorecard, a score chart using conditionals inside a method, and then output that using console.writeLine. So I want you to create a string method, a method that's going to return a string that says if our score is less than 40, output, oh, you have failed, else return a string of, well done, you've got through to your next year. Pause the video now, give it a go. And then once you're done, unpause the video and we'll do it together. So I'm going to delete my code and I'm going to say string because I'm going to return a string of score card. You're going to pass in a score, of course. And here, inside my method, I'm going to say if score. Let's say if score is less than 40, we want to say return a string of you have failed. Else, we'll say return, well done, you passed. Of course, you can put them on separate lines if you wanted to. It's up to you how you want to make it read. And now all we have to do is outside of our method, we can say console.writeLine and we'll say scorecard. And let's pass in 39. Let's say we've failed. Let's hit run on here. And what we can see now is you have failed. And if we pass in a score of 41, we can say, well done, you have passed. Perfect. Just as easy as that, and that's how you can put your conditionals inside your methods. So like I said, methods are just there to be as containers, and you've got your block of code inside it. But what it means is then, if I wanted to reuse this code, instead of rewriting it, I just can call on the scorecard method again. Now we also have optional variables we can pass into here, and I really want to show this because these are used quite a lot as well. Where what if we said that you've got your score, but then you get bonus credits or extra credits? Well, you might not always have those. These might be optional. So what we can say is int bonus, and we can set the optional variable to 0. What this means then is you've got the score, and we've got a bonus, which is an optional parameter. So by default, I don't have to enter this. If I just had int bonus here instead of equals 0, you're going to see that there's an error here because it's expecting another integer parameter to be passed through. But by saying equals or signing something, what we're saying is this is optional and we can update this as we want. So what I could say is int final equals score plus bonus. And then instead of this being score, let's change it to final. So what we got the option of now is we could say 39, which would be a failure. If we just run this, it's going to output you have failed. There we are. But maybe the teacher goes, oh, well, Jared has been really good this year, so I'm going to add 5 extra points onto his score as an optional bonus I want to give to him. If I now run this command, you'll see we have passed because that bonus value we passed through, which has been set as 5 because it's optional by the tutor, has now increased our final score to be over 40. But that's just a very simple way of showing you these optional parameters, but I wanted to show it because it is very useful. Before we kind of end this off, the only other thing I really want to cover is kind of expression body methods to make short methods even smaller. So we had the example of adding some numbers. What we could have done, instead of having this of int add 2 numbers and then have int x, int y, and a block here with the squiggly brackets and saying return x plus y, what we can do instead is make this smaller using expression body. So let's keep that there as an example, but we'll comment it out. And what I can do instead is I can say add 2 numbers. We still pass through the parameters of int x and int y. What we can do here is say equals greater than to make an expression body, and we just want to say return x plus y. And that's the exact same as the above code here, but in this case we made it a lot simpler and cleaner all on one line because it's just a short method. So I could say console.writeLine add 2 numbers. If I say 5 and 5, this should still work completely fine and add 5 and 5 together, which equals 10. Perfect. And that's really all I wanted to show today. In my next video, we're going to go over classes and we're going to touch on a bit more information about methods, things like overloading. We'll keep that for the next video. As always, if you do have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. A like and subscribe is appreciated. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.